Explosions deep inside Russia. Key energy and industrial sites suddenly go dark. Fires seen from space. While Moscow claims control, the scale of the damage tells a different story. On the front line, Ukrainian forces are striking with precision, hitting logistics, armored columns, electronic warfare systems, and training centers, turning critical directions into zones of constant pressure. At the same time, sanctions tighten around Russia's shadow fleet, cutting off money flows, while the Kremlin issues loud political ultimatums that reveal more fear than strength. And behind the lines, a grim new reality emerges. A business built on lies, exploiting the grief of thousands of Russian families. What's going on? Let's break down what's happening right now. Hello, this is Ukraine Today. Maria Farafonova here with the latest updates. Russia's Belgorod was attacked by aerial targets. OSINT analysts report that one of Russia's key power plants, the Luch power station, was hit. Later, Governor Vyacheslav Gladkov confirmed that 8 missiles and several drones were launched at the city and that the attack seriously damaged engineering infrastructure. Following the strike, a large column of smoke rose near the Luch CHP plant and parts of the city were left without electricity. Explosions were heard in other regions of Russia as well. In particular, residents in Astrakhan reported alleged activity of enemy air defense systems. Media suggest that the Astrakhan gas processing plant may have been the target. NASA's satellite imagery recorded a fire at the facility. The strike likely occurred near a sulfur storage warehouse and at the inertial granular sulfur production unit on the plant's premises. The Astrakhan gas processing plant is one of the key enterprises in Russia's oil and gas sector. The facility processes up to 3.2 million tons of petroleum products and up to 3.5 million tons of sulfur annually. The sulfur is used, among other things, to manufacture explosives for Russian military-industrial complex. Russians did not sleep even in the very center of the country. In Moscow and the surrounding region, residents complained of very loud sounds. Explosions were reported in Kashira near Moscow, and videos circulating online show smoke. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin reported that at least 15 drones heading toward Russia's capital were allegedly shot down. Emergency services were working at the sites where debris fell. Special Operations Forces units struck enemy targets in the temporarily occupied territory of Donetsk Oblast and Crimea, using FP-2 strike UAVs. In occupied Crimea, near the settlement of Yantarnaya, strike drones hit a fuel train carrying POL for the occupying forces while it was in motion, and also struck an oil depot in the village of Bitumnaya on the outskirts of Simferopol. Both strikes caused large-scale fires. In Donetsk region, in the settlement of Maryanivka, Special Operations Forces struck the Volna-2 electronic warfare station, and in Dokuchayevsk area, a training center for FPV operators. It is reported that the classified Volna-2 EW station is designed to protect Russian facilities from strike drones. The system is intended to provide direct radio jamming of satellite navigation signals and satellite communication channels in the L-band within a radius of at least 16 kilometers. The Council of the European Union imposed sanctions on 5 more individuals in 4 organizations responsible for supporting Russia's so-called shadow fleet. Specifically, the sanctions list includes businessmen who are directly or indirectly linked to major Russian state oil companies Rosneft and Lukoil. All of them operate in an economic sector that is a significant source of revenue for Russian government, and they control vessels transporting crude oil or petroleum products originating from Russia or exported from Russia, concealing the true origin of the oil and using illegal and risky shipping methods. The EU Council also imposed sanctions on shipping companies based in the United Arab Emirates, Vietnam and Russia that own or operate tankers subject to restrictive measures imposed by the EU or other countries for being part of Russia's shadow fleet, and that transport crude oil or petroleum products using illegal and risky shipping practices. These individuals are subject to asset freezes, and EU citizens and companies are prohibited from making funds available to them. Certain individuals are additionally subject to travel bans, preventing their entry into or transit through EU member states. Overall, EU sanctions apply to more than 2,600 individuals and entities in response to Russia's military aggression against Ukraine. The Kremlin said that one of the cornerstone points of negotiations with Ukraine is Kyiv's renunciation of NATO membership and the existence of a corresponding document. This was stated by Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov. When asked from whom Russia would expect a document that would legally bind Ukraine not to join NATO, Peskov said that this aspect of the peace talks is one of the cornerstones.
And that is precisely why it is subject to special discussion alongside the main issues. This is what the negotiation process is about, which I would like to emphasize once again, We do not want to conduct in a megaphone format.
Meanwhile, Putin's foreign policy aide Yuri Ushakov publicly stated that Ukraine will not be able to regain the temporarily occupied Crimea. He made this comment while speaking with representatives of Russian propagandist media. According to him, the prospect of the occupying the peninsula is allegedly closed forever. At the same time, the official provided no new arguments or details that would change the current situation. Ushakov also commented on the stated goals of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy regarding Crimea and the Euro-Atlantic courts. He claimed that Zelenskyy 1,000,000% would not succeed in regaining Crimea. Separately, the Russian official added that Ukraine allegedly would not be able to secure NATO membership. These remarks were voiced as a political demonstration of the Kremlin's position aimed at denying any scenarios of the occupation. Another aircraft has been taken down. Ukrainian troops have destroyed an enemy armored column in the Pokrovsk sector, and Ukraine's unmanned systems forces are posting remarkable new achievements. Along the most critical stretches of the front, Ukrainian defenders continue to keep up the pressure, carrying out precise strikes on enemy equipment and logistics while firmly holding key positions. These are the latest frontline updates, highlighting both the intensity of the fighting and Ukraine's growing technological and tactical edge.
A cauldron for the occupiers in Kupansk. Analysts from the Deep State project have reported successes by Ukrainian defenders in the northwestern outskirts of the city. In particular, they report that as a result of a successful operation, enemy forces have been blocked by the defense forces. At the same time, enemy enclaves still remain in the central part of Kupansk.
The operation began with the establishment of a defensive line, blocking and cutting off the enemy garrison in the city from its main forces. The defense forces rather swiftly took control of Ryadekivka and Kondrashivka and also brought Holubivka under fire control. After that, a clearing operation was carried out in Mern. The occupier's Soviet-era name Moskovka refers to the northwestern outskirts of Kupiansk itself.
At the same time, the defense forces continue to identify and eliminate the occupiers. The operation is ongoing. As a result of another well-coordinated operation by the armed forces of Ukraine, an enemy column was destroyed in the Pokrovsk direction. The occupiers tried to take advantage of the weather conditions and using armored vehicles, cars and motorcycles attempted to break through from the northern part of the city to the southern part. But their plan failed. On their way, they were met by fighters from the 7th Air Assault Corps and the 68th Jaeger Brigade. However, for the Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance groups, the fog turned out to be an advantage. Thus, thanks to poor visibility, fighters from the main intelligence directorate on the same Pokrovsk direction managed to infiltrate the enemy's rear. Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance groups also managed to destroy an enemy command post during their raid. In recent days, among others, the forces of unmanned systems have also distinguished themselves in destroying enemy forces. Lately, they have been setting incredible records. In just 2 days, drone pilots destroyed 2 battalions of enemy personnel. And this is just the beginning. Last night, the commander of the unmanned systems forces, call sign Madyar, reported that his pilots, in just one, not even a full day, 505 occupiers. Most of them are paratroopers from the 76th Division who were redeployed to Donbas.
That's all you need to know about the current pressure on the front line. The Dobropilsky, Pokrovsky and Hulyapol sectors. The average daily SPS figure in November was 282. Worms. 8,473 specimens over 30 days. The average daily number for 11 days in December is 395 bodies per day, already totaling 4,325. Yuck, yuck! With
each passing day, the occupiers are losing not only soldiers but also expensive equipment. For example, our general staff has confirmed the destruction of another Russian aircraft. The day before, alarming news spread through Z channels from Kacha, a base in temporarily occupied Crimea, where a combat drone struck an An-26 at the military airfield. The Russians also reported losses among their officer corps.
a drone hit an An-26 on the ground. There are dead and wounded.
Another extremely alarming piece of news reached the Russian command from a place they least expected. Ukraine's Special Operations Forces, together with the partisan movement Black Spark, carried out a successful operation all the way in the Caspian Sea. Off the coast of Kalmykia, saboteurs managed to strike 2 Russian vessels transporting weapons. We are talking about the sanctioned cargo ships Composer Rachmaninov and Oskar Sarija, which Russia uses for military purposes.
Pokrovsk and Mirnograd have emerged as 2 frontline cities that embody the resilience and unwavering resolve of the Ukrainian army. Despite constant pressure and repeated enemy assaults, Ukrainian forces continue to hold their ground, disrupt Russian plans, and deny any strategic breakthrough in this vital sector. These towns have effectively become bastions of resistance where discipline, coordination, and determination shape the outcome hour by hour. What is unfolding right now in Pokrovsk and Mirnograd, how the defense is structured, and why these directions remain critically important for the entire front. All the key details are coming up in our in-depth report.
The Russians are storming Pokrovsk with columns of military vehicles. Trying to take advantage of the bad weather conditions, the occupiers launched an assault using armored vehicles and motorcycles. The Ukrainian armed forces, who were already expecting the Russian advance, eliminated the enemy almost immediately. Ukrainian defenders report that the work to destroy enemy equipment and personnel is ongoing. Various components of the defense forces are being involved in the defense of the Pokrovsk agglomeration. The Airborne Assault Group, assault units of the SBS, SSO, SBU, the National Guard, and the National Police.
Ukraine's defense forces control about 13 square kilometers of the Pokrovsk settlement's territory. The total area of the settlement is about 29 square kilometers. Moreover, the Ukrainian defense forces control the high-rise residential district, which is essentially the commanding heights. Accordingly, the fighting is taking place in the so-called industrial zone area.
The logistics for the Ukrainian armed forces remain complicated. To strengthen our supply capabilities, an operation is underway to expand the logistics corridors between the satellite city of Pokrovsk and Mirnorad.
The occupiers' efforts are attempts to break through to Hryshin, which is a key logistical component for the Ukrainian defense forces. In the Pokrovsk direction, the occupiers are not giving up attempts to operationally encircle the Ukrainian defense forces in the Mirnorad area. The main goal of the occupying forces is, once again, to establish direct physical control over the locations of the Ukrainian defense forces.
In order to seize Pokrovsk, the Russian command has transferred operational reserves there, which are also being ground down in unsuccessful attempts to capture the city. Realizing this, Russian soldiers have begun to be hospitalized en masse without being redeployed to the Pokrovsk direction. This was reported by the partisan movement Atesh. According to the medical unit's data, the number of requests from the occupiers has already far exceeded the norm. Groups of soldiers are heading to the hospital, using old injuries, questionable diagnoses, and any excuse to avoid rotation. The fall of Pokrovsk will not lead to the collapse of Ukraine's defenses, but it will weaken Kiev at a sensitive moment in negotiations to end the war under the auspices of the United States, Reuters writes.
The main message promoted by the Russian side is that if Ukraine does not withdraw from the territories of Donetsk region according to the agreements, the Russian Federation will seize these territories by military means. Russian special services are preparing a series of provocations both in Pokrovsk and in the Pokrovsk direction, with the aim of accusing the Ukrainian defense forces of using prohibited chemical poisonous substances.
No matter what anyone says, the defense forces have remained in active defense on the Pokrovsk front for more than a year, currently controlling 40% of the city, where the Ukrainian flag is raised in the center.
In Russia, a new kind of business is thriving, profiting from bloodshed. While thousands of families across the country search for their missing soldiers, a real business has emerged around their grief. So-called independent experts take money to allegedly identify missing servicemen as prisoners of war based on blurry photos. The scammers do not care who is actually in the image. For 30,000 rubles, they claim a 90% match and confidently tell devastated families that it is their son, husband or brother, that he is alive and in captivity. More about it next.
With the start of the so-called special military operation, organizations have appeared in Russia that search for Russian soldiers missing in Ukraine. There are also enterprising Russians who have started making money off the deaths of their own compatriots.
Scammers are sending out fake messages online, posing as volunteers from the Defenders of the Fatherland Foundation, offering to help search for missing soldiers from the special military operation in the Irkutsk region.
Fraudsters are widely offering their services to help find missing soldiers from the special military operation. Scammers are creating fake projects to search for Russian soldiers and are extorting large sums of money from grief-stricken relatives.
Strangers themselves reach out to the relatives of the missing, introducing themselves as members of a search group. They get contacts from various chats and communities and often invite people to their fake channels or groups. There may be reviews on such channels online, but they are usually fake. They publish false reviews there to create an appearance of trust. The main thing is they ask for money for the search, for travel, and for the work of specialists.
These are well-known schemes by now. But here's what's new. Independent experts are making money off the families of the missing and the dead, supposedly confirming for a fee that their husband, son, or brother is still alive.
By the hands, by a single ear, by a completely bandaged face, by a fingernail. For a certain sum, the experts will confirm to you that this is your soldier in captivity. Even in an African or an Asian, they will find 99% similarity with a blue-eyed Russian warrior. This is not just unprofessionalism or a technical mistake, this is outright fraud, when it's obvious to the naked eye that the person in the photo and video is someone else.
Z-blogger Anastasia Koshevarova writes about a new scheme from pseudo-experts. She claims that so-called identification is carried out using low-quality photographs. For a hefty sum, the experts confirm that a particular Russian is being held captive. The blogger claims that this is in fact outright fraud. It is claimed that such pseudo-expert analyses are conducted at the Stealth Forensic Research Institute, which is located in the city of Chelyabinsk in Russia. And judging by their income, the experts there have been working around the clock lately.
The price for an expert opinion on whether a missing soldier resembles a captive in a photo or video is quite high, 30,000 rubles. Most payments are transferred to the account of the non-profit organization, but there are also cases of money being sent to private individuals via phone number. Revenue doubled in 2024 compared to 2023. If you compare it to 2022, the results are even more impressive. In 2022, the non-profit organization earned 144,000 rubles, but by 2024, it was already over 8 million. There is currently no publicly available data for 2025.
There have even been cases where a family sent photos of soldiers from an exchange among whom their relative was definitely not present. But the examination confirmed with 99% certainty that the soldier should have been there. As a result, some Russians are profiting handsomely from the grief of others. For a long time, families are convinced that their soldier is in captivity and refuse to believe otherwise, knowing that there is no evidence of captivity except for this pseudo-expertise. Relatives constantly besiege military enlistment offices and military units, demanding that the prisoners of war be officially recognized. Unfortunately, it doesn't occur to anyone that this fraudulent scheme would never have arisen if Russians hadn't flocked to sign contracts with the Russian Ministry of Defense and gone off to fight in Ukraine.
That's all for now. Stay with us to be the first to know what's happening right now. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon!